Welcome to Managed Fantasy Football. We got our first big show. We got James, we got myself and Ditka here. And we're going to be going over some load management with James Weingate, some predictions with Ditka, and power rankings with myself. James, welcome to the show.
How we doing, Adam?
I'm crushing it, like every day, living the life. How's your load doing?
We are busting loads and taking names over here, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. People busting loads on their fab management right now, and we're also talking about some load management as well. We're going to do a little bit of both tonight, and we have 3 special segments. It's going to be great. It's going to be marvelous. We're going to be talking about so many loads. We're going to be talking about loads, so many loads. The biggest load blow of kind of free agent pickups and fab overall this week, it's got to be David with fat Randy Bullock going for $11 for a kicker. And we're talking about a guy that missed a 15-yarder game-winning kick, and then he lied about which leg hurt on his interview after. And David's a guy who will shit talk anybody. He shit talked me and you on our $20 trade for a tight end. He shit talked Adam for getting Gostowski last year for $17. Well, he spent over half of that money on bad Randy here when he could have got Gostowski for free, and he scored 25 points last week. Like, this pickup doesn't make any sense. You're just throwing away money.
I couldn't say it any better, James. Now let's go to the best kept secret.
So the best kept secret is a segment about, a fat pickup that's a good sleeper that maybe someone spent a little bit of money on, but they're getting mass production out of this player. I think we haven't had too many this year, but I think the best one so far has been my case with Myles Gaskin. Actually, at the beginning of the year, he was actually initially a backup for Miami's running back trio. I drafted Jordan Howard initially, but I picked up Myles Gaskin for $8 after week 1 because he was getting some production there. And he's actually been very consistent, getting 20 carries, about 50 to 100 yards, and I think maybe 1 touchdown, but he's getting progressively more involved in that offense. And actually, when it comes down to bye season, once the bye weeks start to kind of hit, I think he'll be a nice plug-in for one of my running backs, for sure.
Now, question for you, a little bit of scenario action. Let's say Jeff Hedges and I, we both have like our RB1s go down, and Mike Davis is on the board. Would you bid $54 like Scott did? Would you say that was a good bid, bad bid? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good bid in terms of where Scott is right now with no running backs to really play right now. CMC went down, so he had to have gotten Mike Davis at all costs. Is it a little bit high? I think that's, based on the situation, I think. And I think he scored 20 points this week. So maybe he'll get some crazy production volume in these next 4 weeks until CMC gets back. And, he's down to $17 in fab already. It's only week, 3?
But would you outbid me or Hedges if that happened in our division? Would you try to go like 60?
Actually, in my case, I don't think so. I have, two starting running backs, and then a couple of running backs that are, splitting carries between a running back set. So I don't think I would bet that much.
I'm telling you, I would right now. I would bid like as much as physically possible. So I want you first.
That's the way you play then, I guess. I'm
Yeah.
worried about my team. I don't know.
All right, let's go to the 0% owned.
Yeah, so the 0% owned here is, a segment about basically why do you have this person on your team and what the fuck are you doing? Because 0% of other leagues don't own this person. In this case, I think the number one pick here is Dave Bailey with Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is still on suspension for violating the NFL drug policy for the umpteenth time, and I'm surprised this man hasn't been expelled from the NFL for how many times he's been suspended. On top of that, he's on a team where you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in front of him. So where does he fit in that wide receiving core? I'm thinking like 2 targets a game on a good day. So at this point, he's just wasting space on your bench. Like, you can't even put him on IR because you can't put suspended players on IR. So
now,
Dave Bailey, what are we doing?
Thursday is coming up, and it's a big game. Everyone's excited about it. It's all the hot dogs. We have the Denver Broncos versus the Jets. And you look like you're making a hint in the background here of your other 0% owned. Why?
Yeah. So when we were discussing a close runner-up to 0% owned is Justin with the Jets defense. If you own anybody on the Jets, or even the Broncos for that matter, I don't know. I don't think you know fantasy football at all.
Well,
I don't want to touch
What about the ripping and tearing their quarterback?
I don't want to touch anybody on the Jets with an 80-foot pole. So that's where I stand. And I think, to just to even improve, I think they need to fire Gase, because I don't even know what that team is even doing anymore.
Bet right now, Adam Gase gets fired, in my eyes, next Tuesday. And I will bet that I will wear a face mask for all day. I'll do all day. Wearing a face mask based off of whose guess is closer on when Adam Gase gets fired.
He'll get fired by week 8, I think.
Week 8. Like the Monday of week 8 or the Sunday of week 8? The Sunday of week 8.
Let's do the Tuesday after week 8.
Tuesday after week 8. Okay. So it's a done deal. It's happening.
Yep.
Face mask from the 12 p.m. game to the 7 p.m.
Got it. Of week 9.
Whenever it happens.
Yeah.
Whoever's closer. Which, if it's this soon, I am hyped. I've never been more excited to see someone get fired, and I know it sounds demonic, but he's just terrible at his job. Look at those eyes. Well, James, thank you for coming in. We're going to hop on over to predictions with Dick God.
Thank you.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to not yet another edition of My Dick is Bigger Than Yours, but instead to just a short little segment on predictions here. We've got some great games in store for you this week. Some hot games that we're going to get to in just a second. As you can see, I'm wearing a Reds pull-up quarter zip here.
We can't see.
And not the traditional Dicka, but they seem to choke, much like the Dicka Dig last week and the week before that. So, yeah, let's get right to the predictions, shall we? The first game of the week, we've got the Black Cats of Adam Lawson versus Jehoff, also known as Jeff Carr. And we believe that Adam Lawson is going to put up 131 points to Jeff Carr's 122. Jeff Carr is not off to a very good start this year. He is taking the Dave Bailey route. He has not won a game yet so far this season. He does have Patrick Mahomes, who is not giving him as much luck as he gave me last year. OBJ looking like he's going to turn it on. I think that Jeff is going to have a good week, but ultimately at the end of the day, I think that the Ravens are going to have a big bounce back week. And with Lamar Jackson, he's just going to go off for 30, maybe 40 plus points. And What the Eckler, one of my favorite players in the league, is just going to score too much for Lawson. He's going to win 131 to 122.
Now, Justin,
okay.
Got a question
Yes.
for you. I think that we can potentially make a bet with Jeff Carr where whoever the first person to lose against him has to do whatever the bet is. We can think about this throughout the season, but I think that is a hilarious way and a good way to encourage Jeff to get that win. Don't know what it is yet, but I think we can find something to make that
I love it. I think that is a great idea. If anything, I would say that the predictions say that Jeff may get his first win next week. I don't know who they play. I haven't done any of the analysis, but that's what they say. It said it could be 0-4. All right, let's get to the, this is what we like to call the trash can game of the week between Jeff Hedges and David Pemberton. Somehow Jeff Hedges has started off in the league 3-0, and David Pemberton just playing like what his team looks like, which is pretty much hot garbage. And that is what this game is going to be. It's going to be a bunch of hot garbage. But we do think that Hedges is going to come away with the victory, 88-75 over Manessy Jesus, over Local Fat Kid. It's going to be a close one, but ultimately Hedges' team is going to prevail. Dalvin Cook looks like that Texans Vikings game is going to end up being played. CeeDee Lamb looking like a pretty good start this year. Juju Smith-Schuster for Jeff, it could come down to that at the end of the day. And just looking at David's team, Fat Randy, I mean, who spends $11 on Fat Randy? I think that's ultimately going to be what causes him to lose his game.
It's funny you say that. We actually just talked about him in our other segment, though.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fat Randy. I think that might be worse than the $17 that was spent on Gostkowski.
I think it is too, because I mean, Gostkowski went for nothing. You could get Gostkowski, and he was $25. I mean, he had 25 points.
I mean, Fat Randy probably got a cramp because he spent $11 at like McDonald's before the game or something. That's the equivalent of what David spent on that. But that's for another segment. Okay, let's get to the next game. The Mighty Ditkas versus James Weingang. Of course, one of the biggest players of the week in this matchup is Derrick Henry. Will he play? Won't he play? Will the Titans play the Steelers? We shall see. What makes it even more interesting is that the big dick Derrick Henry, of course, was on James's team last year, so we would love to see him play this week, get that sweet, sweet revenge, and be able to defeat James. Ditka definitely needs a bounce back week, or he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. He's currently at 1-2. I do think he's ultimately going to get it. I think that his players are going to have a nice bounce back week. Hopefully Davante Adams is going to be healthy. We shall see. But ultimately, I just think that James's team is a little too weak. I'm not a big fan of his running backs or his wide receivers or his tight end or his kicker or his defense or his quarterback. So
now, question for you, Justin. Last week, Thursday, you started a defense and you regretted it. You're doubling down. Thoughts?
I am doubling down. That is right. My strategy of picking defenses weeks prior, I am doubling down, and I'm going with the Jets Thursday night versus the Denver Broncos. 100%. That's a locked-in bet. You can lock it in. I don't care what happened. I don't care if Peyton Manning gets out of retirement and is playing for the Broncos on Thursday night. You lock it in.
How many points they get, defense-wise?
I'm talking a minimum 13 points.
13. All right. I love it, Dick.
Minimum 13 points. Now, when I say I didn't just double down, I tripled down. I also did add the Cowboys.
That's why you added them. Are they on Thursday night?
No.
I was going to say,
that's actually a good idea. I should just start playing on Thursday night
game. You have it.
No, they are actually playing the Giants next week. So that's why I added them. And you know what happened the last time the Cowboys played the Giants, right? The Black Cat Miracle happened.
That's true. Hoping for a second.
Yeah, all about getting that juju, all about that juju. All right, that brings us to what I am calling the game of the week between Dave Bailey and BJ Ross. These two have developed a little bit of a mini rivalry over the last couple of years, with Dave suddenly becoming one of the stars in the league, and BJ, of course, having his consistency of being at the top. BJ off to a little bit of a rough start, still in halfway decent shape, but not what he's usually accustomed to from year to year. I do think that this is going to be the closest game. Both teams very intimidating to go up against, but at the end of the day, it's Dave Bailey 128 to BJ's 127. And I think that this one is going to come down to some Sunday night football, Monday night football. The Niners defense versus the Eagles, they could put up a lot of points. They do have a lot of injuries, but it looks like Dave Bailey's going to roll the dice. And I don't know if you noticed, but BJ's actually going with some Thursday night football action this week as well with his defense. He's doing the opposing Broncos versus the Jets. How about that?
I mean, I think it's a safe bet. Anybody against the Jets is...
Okay, you know what?
Justin, all I'm saying is...
If I was doing it, everybody would be against it.
I don't know anybody that has a Jets player outside of my brother, and we can both agree that his team's great.
Yeah, and his is on the IR, so that's even better.
Shit.
It could come down to Monday night, Matt Ryan. BJ does have Matt Ryan. That could be a big one. And the Falcons, I mean, their offense has been doing pretty good. It's just that their team as a whole is just hot garbage.
What was your thoughts on the Drake-Julio trade, Justin?
Honestly, Yeah, I mean, it wasn't very sexy. I thought it was pretty boring. Everyone seemed to agree that BJ got the short end of the stick there, but he needed a little bit of a confidence boost, so that's why I decided to vote for him, because everybody else was voting for Scott. So,
it was a confidence play.
Yeah, it was a confidence play. He needed a little confidence booster. I think his self-esteem after all them votes was probably hurting. So I decided to give, Team Iceland a little bit of a... Because ultimately, I want to play Team Iceland at the end of the year. I don't want to play Scott. I don't want to play anybody else. I want BJ or Bailey. I do a rematch against Bailey.
And then we have my game.
Yeah, and then we have your game, which is going to be the blowout of the week. Hate to say it, hate to give you the W, especially since you're in my division. But your team is currently on fire the last couple of weeks, and I think is just going to put up a lot of points. And Scott's team just seems to be going in the wrong direction. Shefty's milk. I mean, Cam Newton, we'll see if his little bit of his regression last week is a trend. He did, at the end of the game, I think he did score a few more points towards the end of the game, if I do remember. But Elliott, Taylor, I mean, just looking at this lineup, it's gonna be hard to beat. And Scott's got a lot of injuries. We'll see if that trade pays off. I'm not a big Kenyon Drake fan. But they do play the Panthers this week, who's got a weak defense. I just don't think he cracks 100 points, though.
I honestly had Drake as my number 6 back for my rankings at the beginning of the year. I would have drafted him over a lot of players. Now, looking back at it, if we could redraft, I would still say that I would draft him as a top 10 back. So I'm kind of nervous this week. I know I have a good team, but we'll see. We'll see. Well, Dicka, thank you for joining in with us. We'll see you with your Burger King bet. Now, when will that be happening?
Well, I was going to do it on Tuesday, but then I made tacos last night, so I did not do that. And I'm not doing it tonight because I already ate dinner again, so it could be tomorrow night.
Okay.
It could be Sunday during the games. So those are the two options. See what happens.
Okay, just let us know.
Maybe we'll do it while they're deciding, the COVID situation with Titans and Steelers. So
that would be nice. Well, right on.
Maybe I'll get it. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, thank you for your time, Dicka.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
Alrighty, in our last segment, we are going to go into power rankings. So, starting with number 10, Jeff Carr. Injury-riddled season so far. Really looking for that first win like we talked about earlier. Man, I'm really rooting for you, Jeff, but it is going to be a tough season. You might have to at least do a good 2-for-1 if you want to have a chance to get to the playoffs. It's looking rough with Bake One out. Number 9, James. James had his first rounder go out as well, and not having Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara take all those touches away from him is pretty brutal. That being said, he's coming back, so this could be a very big bounce back week for James. Justin, number 8. I would just have to say that outside of Derrick Henry, I really don't like your running backs, and that always just scares me. I'm a running back heavy fiend, and I think that's going to hurt you once we roll around the bye weeks. Number 7, Scott. Scott recently made a trade that I think made his team better, at least immediately. Maybe not in the long term. But Scott is doing what he needs to get by during the time that Christian McCaffrey is down. Mike Davis was a good pick. Number 6, Lawson. Lawson had an interesting season. Right at the bat, it looked rough with all those split carries, but with Tyrod getting hurt and Chubb and Hunt just leading the Browns, running down people's throats, it's looking on the up for Lawson right now. Number 5, we have David Pemberton. David has Mixon and Tyreek. Most of these teams from 5 to 8 seem very similar to me. But Tyreek is having one of those seasons like he did the number 1 year. So if Tyreek can keep it up, if Mixon can finally break out, it's looking good for David. Number 4, BJ Ross. BJ just made a trade with, in my eyes, one of his best backs, but he got Julio, and if Julio is getting receptions that Ridley's getting right now, and we know Atlanta is going to be throwing a lot, BJ is always a competitor and always typically in the top 4. Let's see how he handles some adversity this year. And then number 4. Now number 3, Jeff Hedges. He is undefeated, but if we look at his bench and we look on to bye weeks, it's going to be potentially a rough coming for Hedges if he keeps his team as is. So let's see if he can maintain that spot. And into number 2, myself. I've been really good with my running back so far this year. Starting wide receivers has been difficult for me. I do have a decent amount of depth, but I really need Cam to be able to kick it in, to be able to beat that top spot, just because of the fact that this man has Mr. Unlimited. Oh shit, I totally edited this wrong, and it's Dave Bailey that's number 1, not Adam P. So Dave Bailey is number 1. He has just been scoring like crazy. Russell Wilson's been having 40-point games. Alvin Kamara is having 40-point games, and the number 1 back is the number 1 back, number 1 quarterback and running back. Lawson had this last year. He didn't win, but it's very terrifying throughout the season to go against Bailey. Congratulations on being number 1. Need some comments on what you guys like, what you didn't like. Hope to hear from you guys. See you in week 4, and tune in. Have a good one, guys.